You know, every business has a story. You know, I grew up loving music. That certainly played a part in me going to work in radio. I worked in radio for like 20 years. I love music. And yet, somehow now, I listen to podcasts all the time. I would say I'm pretty much addicted to business podcasts, things about startups, startup stories, businesses, anything about how businesses operate, how they grow, how they scale, how they got started. And they're all over the place. I love how the business was built. I love the interviews with people who have had massive success. They get to tell the story about how they did it. I find it all fascinating. And here at ADvine, we celebrated last week. Actually, we celebrated our 2-year anniversary as a company, and there's certainly nothing, at least in my mind, that has any business being celebrated at 2 years, other than just really thank you to the people who are helping to make it happen. But there's certainly no success story at the 2-year mark, at least in my opinion. And I know there's some other examples out there where you could say there were, but I've heard it said that when you own a business, it's like having a child. I've heard people say that have lost a business or had it go under, that it was like losing a child. For me, in my mind, that's a little much, but I do totally, it's overstated. Let me just say that. But I totally understand what they mean. I get it. There's so much of you that's poured into it, so much time. It means so much that I imagine if you lost it, there would be a huge hole. I think if you asked any parent who lost a child, they'd say it was overstated. But boy, do I understand that it means a lot, and there's a feeling of loss. And I've seen some that have gone into depression, and so the highs are really high, the lows are really low. If I think about it even for a minute, it motivates and drives me to try not to allow that to happen. And I'm realistic. I know that sometimes things happen, right? Circumstances that people might say were beyond their control, planes flying into buildings, economies that crash, things that certainly complicate the journey. But I do understand the analogy to a child, especially when you talk about a 2-year-old, because in so many ways, this business is still just a baby, still just, a toddler that's evolving and, still has so much to do, so much to accomplish. And, but then you also look at it and say, look at this 2-year-old compared to the 1-year-old. Look at this 2-year-old compared to what it looked like at birth. So much has happened, right? And so that part is very, very exciting. But I certainly wouldn't call anything that's been done in a 2-year-old's life a major success, right? You pull yourself up on a coffee table and you can stand next to it, feels like a success in the moment. But if when you start walking, you walk into a wall and you keep walking into the same wall over and over until you knock yourself unconscious, maybe you prematurely celebrated the coffee table thing. So as you sit here, a 2-year-old business, and you say, I'm realistic. I know we're going to walk into some walls. I just am confident and certainly hope that we would be smart enough not to walk into the exact same wall again, and certainly not over and over again until we knock ourselves out. Even with that said, though, the excitement about where the company is at 2 years versus where it started is amazing to me, and I can't even relate to some of the success stories that I've heard about. Because many times, we all love the rags to riches story. I think that's why I'm so attracted to hearing how the business started. And sometimes there's some amazing circumstances or strokes of luck or amazing testimonies of persistence and how it happened and how there may have been so many failures, but then this hit, or they met the right person and it just took off. And I love all of it. But oftentimes those stories are told, the early stage, it's the rags part of the rags to riches story sometimes is referencing the first round of seed money, or try and get started on just a few $100,000, or it's hard for this guy to relate to that. You know, I grew up a poor kid in a small house with no air conditioning in South Florida. So if you know anything about humidity, you know what that was probably like. So I know a lot about not having money and being the only kid on the basketball team that can't afford the team shoe. And I know more about that than I do anything else. But business was a place where, for a guy who isn't great at a lot of things, I was good at business, a business I could do. And so business was good to me, and I had a lot of people that asked, why are you leaving a stable job? And it's a weird time to leave, right? I mean, I'm more than 20 years into working in a corporate life, or really just working for other people, and making more money than I probably imagined I would ever make back when I was a kid growing up in a house with no air conditioning in South Florida. People ask me all the time, why at this stage of your life would you take the chance and walk away from as stable as a job can be? Why would you walk away from a stable job and do that? And I think the best answer I could give is, as a flawed human being, I certainly didn't make the right choices throughout my life with money, and I certainly didn't make every right decision at every turn. And I really just saw the chance to start the business as almost like a little bit of a do-over, and a chance to say, all right, here's one thing I know I'm good at, and if I can do it really well under these circumstances, I would have something that I could, leave behind for my children. Call it legacy, or just call it, wanting to have something that lives beyond you. And I work really hard. Anyone that knows me knows I work really hard. I bring a lot of passion and energy to the things that I do, especially the things I'm good at, that I can really lock in on. And man, what a journey this has been. I can tell you that I see people who own businesses, and they post a lot of things about, the big life of business ownership. They show themselves in front of private jets or in limos, traveling to great places, or standing in front of some amazing car. I already told you how I grew up, so you can imagine what my first cars were like. But because business was good to me, and because I was able to accomplish some things in business, I think the last 5 cars I drove before I was a business owner were Jaguar, Mercedes, BMW, I think. Cars I wouldn't have even been able to imagine driving growing up as a kid, living where I was living. But as a business owner, I drive a Honda. Not all the glamorous lifestyle that it's presented to be sometimes in the world. But ask me if I've regretted even 1 minute of this 2 years, this process. Literally not 1 second have I gone, maybe I shouldn't have done this. That doesn't mean I haven't woken up at 2 in the morning with the anxiety attack that some of you understand, but it's more the pressure of people who trusted that this company was going to be able to make it and provide for them, the clients who trust their resources I've had that anxiety, and it drives me. And there were times when it was a little scary, especially early, but I'm just so driven to do right by the people. I mean, I have a business partner who walked away from a stable job to start this. There was 4 of us in the beginning, and one of them, our graphic artist, 6 months or so in, made a decision that she'd never lived outside of this area and had a chance to go live somewhere amazing, and we certainly encourage that. But it was probably like, hey, how are we going to replace that person? It's so young. It's 25% of our workforce at the time, right? But I always think about her when we have like a 2-year celebration, because she was a big part of getting this started, and the trust she had to be here, and for all of the people. And then I'm further blessed because one of those 4 people was my son. And I've had the ability to work with 2 of my sons in the 2 years of this business. And like I said, one of them right from the very beginning. But there's some pressure in that too, right? him, his young wife, my grandchild, whose futures were impacted one way or the other. We're going to be impacted by the decision he made to try and be a part of this. And he's been a huge part of it. And it's so exciting, right? And some of you can relate to this. I asked somebody once if it was a good idea to coach my kids in sports. I'm a competitive guy. Sometimes I get a little too engaged. Maybe I should let my kids do their own thing and just be the fan in the stands. And somebody said to me, they said, listen, it's not about that. It's about all those days of practice that you're together, all that time in the dugout or on the court that you're together, the road trips, the intense, tense moments that you share together as part of a team. It's super valuable. And I took that advice and I coached the kids over the years. But if that's true in youth sports, how true is it in business? How blessed am I to be able to work side by side with him every day, and his brother, who's been a part of this now for over a year as well. Crazy exciting, super blessed, super proud. Even as just 2-year-old toddler company, that's exciting. And I've also learned that there's an extended family and to say extended almost cheapens it. It's family. The people that, I've worked with every day, the people, it's such a big deal when you add to the team, but yet it's so cool to bring all the different dynamics. And some of you know so much more about what I'm talking about because you're not a 2-year-old infant. You've been doing this a while, or you've had companies that you've built to scale. And I'm just enjoying the ride, but I'm so driven by the commitment I have to those people, the commitment they made to be a part of this, the things we accomplish. It's so cheesy to say that, our customers are like family, or we treat them like family. But for me, it's so true, because the whole reason I would even take this risk of starting a company was in hopes that I'd be able to do something that I could leave behind for my children, something that would live beyond me. And so it's very much, this business is about family. And any client that comes on board and trusts us with their business, I can believe they probably have those exact same thoughts I have, how much theirs means to them, and then they trust us, and any money that we make from that is to the benefit of my family. It really is all one and the same, and my loyalty to that, I can't even properly describe it. So I just, there's no success story to tell here, not at 2 years. I have fun imagining what it might be like one day if we can accomplish the things I want to accomplish here. It's just been a crazy, even at 2 years, and even with just the minor successes that we've had along the way, it is fun to think back, at a business that started with $1,500 in the bank account, literally just $1,500. And I take a certain amount of pride that the $1,500 that started this company, that went into the account that we started at the beginning, came out of my final check. That was an important check, my final check, when I left my previous job, pretty stable, because I had to live off that money. My business partner that started the company with me, with that small little group that began the company, neither of us took a nickel out of the company for more than 90 days. It required some life adjustment. I had to say to the kids, you still have chores, you're just not going to get paid for them anymore. We didn't run air in the summer that year, that first year in Fresno. Forget traveling. We didn't take any vacation for a year. We did not eat out for a year. I already told you the switching cars. There's a lot that goes into it, and it's not to say there weren't scary moments, but it's exciting and it's fun, and I know we'll look back on it one day. I already kind of do, but I know I'll look back on it in time. That was some of the most fun, some of the most exciting. It's fantastic. It's a growth story, and here at ADvine, our mantra is we grow together. Because even though I had decades of experience in business and in media, I had 0 days of experience in operating an advertising agency when we started this, and had no idea that we would pretty fast pivot and become a digital ad agency. So I knew nothing about those things. I'm not one of these that grew up with technology at my fingertips in my hands. I had to learn, and when you're a little older, you kind of have to double time to make up for it. And so we knew nothing about some of the things that we had to get into to even make it to where we are today, to even pull ourselves up on the coffee table. But it's exciting, because now we know we can take those kind of things that we know nothing about that are going to become big next year. Yeah, we can take that on. We didn't know anything more than anyone else about social media when we decided we were going into that. And then within 6 months, we're the largest social media management company in Central California. That's exciting. It's not to say that it's exciting that we didn't know anything about Amazon and handling Amazon for people's businesses, but we do that just fine. We didn't have a single videographer when we started. We didn't really know that we would need one. Now we have a team of videographers, and we're a production house. We produce all day long for people. It's exciting. It's fun. I don't know what's coming in the next year. I got a couple of guesses, but I don't know exactly what's going to be huge in 5 years. I just know that we'll pivot and be there, because it's our obligation. It's our obligation to our clients, to our family, that we have to grow. Because if you're not growing, you're dying. But when we grow, our clients grow along with us. As we get better and we do better for them, they grow with us. Now, some of them have their own magic where they can grow disproportionately, but there's no downside. When we grow, they grow a little. That's just how it is. And so we're so committed to growth, and so excited about not being a 2-year-old and the things we're able to do at 2, but we're so excited about the next 2 years and the 10 after that and the 20 beyond that. And it's exciting. And for the businesses that have been with us and trusted us since the beginning, or from the last year or more, there's so many things that we've thrown ourselves into, gotten our arms around, figured out, and said we can capitalize on this. And those businesses are capitalizing on it, some of them in a really big way. And that's so exciting. And one day, maybe I'll be interviewed on one of those podcasts. One day, way up the line, when it seems fair to call anything that's been done a success story. Today, just a 2-year-old, still kind of bumbling around and finding our way. But man, I'm having fun with it. And I guess if you're still sitting through this, you don't mind that I wanted to share the story we have to date, and certainly not call it a success story, but just to say it's our story. And every business has a story. I think what's exciting about being an advertising agency is that when somebody trusts us to handle their business, we get to learn their story, and then we get to figure out how to creatively tell it to the world. And it's exciting. It's so much fun. Thanks for listening. All the best to you.